I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, adjustments to the agenda.
Yes, for the board's consideration, have a number of adjustments we'd like to recommend. One would be to move the student presentation from its current spot on the agenda to immediately follow approval of minutes. To add item 5 under new business, consideration and approval of a lease purchase bids for a bus. Add item 6, report on Maine School Management Association conference, and to renumber previous number 5 and number 6 to become number 7 and number 8.
I move that we adjust the agenda as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Item D, approval of minutes for October 8th, 2019.
I move that we approve the minutes of the October 8th, 2019 board meeting as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Student presentation.
This is our newest student approaching the podium right now.
Certainly the oldest.
I didn't say that.
I did. It's okay. Last month, as part of my report, I mentioned that Special Olympics had suggested that our school would be a unified champion school. And we've worked so hard on Rachel's challenge, and kindness starts with me. Teachers and staff everywhere are making sure that children understand that they are welcome, valued, included. And we have a special program presentation tonight that does all of that and more. And it's not limited to K-4. It's really expanded and includes K-8, K-12, and our general community. So I'd like to introduce Christy Hardison, who will share with you and have the children share a little bit. I have to say the bad weather interrupted and interfered with several of our students that were going to be here tonight, but we are so grateful to all the wonderful people who came tonight to talk about Challenger and Unified. Christy?
So when Kathy came to me to talk about this, the conversation really happened after the Rachel's Challenge presentation. And one of the big things about it was really trying to show the ripple effect, the kindness chain, so to speak, that has sort of happened with unified activities in the Ellsworth community and in our school that have grown in the last year, especially. So we started to talk, and I started to explain all the people who were involved in that, how, there are people in the community and people in the school, and how it's really not one person leading the way or a few people, it's a whole bunch of people who are really going out of their way to make sure that every kid has access to everything they want to do in our community. So, we sort of back things up to where it started and how things began for our community when it came to unified activities. And when Kathy heard that Bob Dorr, who is with us tonight, is the gentleman who's responsible for starting this gigantic kindness chain, we sort of decided that it would be nice to show you all how this has unfolded and how it started. And we're going to do some visuals along the way. And I've invited everybody who's been part of this to come tonight and sort of be recognized and be part of the presentation. So to talk about how Bob got this started, it's really important. And I've asked Todd Wagstaff, who will be helping me present tonight, to say a little something about how Bob started this kindness chain and sort of what made this all get started in our community. So Todd, if you would come up, please, and say a little something about Bob. I appreciate that.
The best part about this is Spawn has no idea why he's here. So my name is Todd Wagstaff, and I became a part of this chain, I guess, in the beginning with Mr. Dorr. He and I have been involved with Little League together for years. He actually got me started with volunteerism and has taught me more than anybody I know about giving back. He models that. You know, it's hard to keep up with him. I will say that before we even talked about a Challenger League in Ellsworth, his motto was every kid should play. And from our days in Little League, everything that he did, even though Little League has these rules that everybody has a problem with, and there are all these things that hoops you have to jump through to make sure all the kids play, Bob worked overtime, making sure every kid could play, even creating different divisions and different events so that all kids could play and not just the best ones and not just the ones whose parents got them there every time. And that in my mind is the beginning of inclusion, you know. And so then after that, you know, I was introduced to Challenger with him at a seminar in Minneapolis. We saw some videos. We thought, hey, maybe we could do something like this in Ellsworth. We threw the word out there, and folks like Nikki Cushions, who's been on our board and been instrumental from the beginning, grabbed on and brought all of her tools along with her, and her kid too, and that's the important part for me, is that modeling. You know, it's not enough to say to your kids, hey, you should go volunteer, you should get back to the community, you need to do it yourself. And Nikki does that, and others that started Challenger with us did that. Every one of us on the board have kids that have volunteered in the program from the beginning. My daughter, my son were involved from day one. Grace, Nikki's daughter, was involved from day one. So, and in including them, you know, it made it easier. I think it made it more evident to them how they can include others. You know, so they pulled in their friends, and now we have dozens and dozens and dozens of child volunteers. So, you know, in Bob's case, I really feel like this is the beginning, but it's led to so many things in the last, just in the last year. So Challenger started 5 years ago, and in the last year, so many other things have evolved from that Christy will tell you about. But that's my job right now, is to tell you how Mr. Dorr got this whole thing started and kind of.
So we have some helpers here. Don't go, because you're staying. We have some helpers here. So Hannah Wagstaff and Grace Burley are going to sort of help us with our presentation. So we brought this jar because we really wanted to try to represent how many kiddos are affected by what we're doing. So throughout the presentation, as we make links on our kindness chain that we build, and Grace will help us do that, Hannah's going to put in a glass bead that represents all the kids who are affected by that program. So when we're through, we should see how many kids in our community have been affected by all of this. But it all starts with Bob. So he's the first link in our chain, and I won't make him get up. Grace, you can go over and get started with Bob. Wait, what? Oh, okay. The first link. And then you can hold on to it. Thank you. So now I get to talk about Todd because you can sit. Todd's the co-founder of Challenger Baseball. He's the coach, but he's really the heart of the program. Honestly, how we met real quick, I was a special education teacher, and my students came into school and wrote about being a real baseball player. And I said, what do you mean you're a real baseball player? And they said, yeah, we play baseball. And being the protective teacher that I am, I called their parents and wanted to know all about this baseball. And they told me about it, and that happened on Saturday morning. So that next Saturday morning, I took my kids and we drove to DeMeyer Field, and we wanted to watch this Challenger Baseball that my students were participating in. I had about 5 or 6 students in the program. And we watched from the sidelines, and I cried. I will admit, I cried the whole time. watching the kids and the regular kids and the special ed kids together, but seeing Todd really accommodate each kid at the plate and give them what they need to be successful. He wasn't trying to get the kids to play baseball, he was bringing baseball to the kids. And whatever each kid needed individually at the plate, he took care of them, every need, so that they could feel safe and successful and participate. So I of course, embarrassed my children and went over and introduced myself to him immediately following the game. And I think I got 3 words in, and we both started crying and gave each other a hug, and we've been friends ever since. I think I've been back to Challenger every Saturday since then. And sort of that friendship that he and I have created through Challenger has sort of led the way to do more activities. We started the Challenger with 12 players the first year. This year we had 44 players and 44 student volunteers. So we had 88 kids on the field every Saturday morning with about 8 volunteers. It's a really big impact. In the last 5 years, I estimate about 150 kids have been impacted. Todd, can you put your link on the page, please? And really, it's been Thanks, Hannah. It's been really huge for our community and for our students. Nope, you're good. Yep, you're good. So really, the third link in the chain that I would like to talk about are the players and the buddies, because they are so important. That's what makes the team successful. We had a few players that we invited tonight, and because of weather, they weren't able to attend. We do have some of our players here. Bailey and Grace are here, and they can go on up with Hannah and Grace. Grace and Grace are actually buddies at Challenger, and so it's a great friendship that they have. One of my favorite parts about the buddies and the players together is the overlap that I see at school. So they see each other in the hallways, and they high-five each other, and they sit with each other at lunch, and they play with each other at recess, and the typical kids and everybody just sort of feels part of the same community. They know each other outside of school and inside of school. They invite each other to each other's birthday parties. It's a really great, wonderful thing to see, and that's probably our favorite part of Challenger is seeing the friendships that are created. Doesn't matter what grade. We've got, 8th graders. We've got college kids who come back and see their buddies and really impact the kids at every level. So if you guys want to put your link on it, Jane. Grace will help you. So after this season, when it got over, last season, actually not this past season, the last season for last year, when we had our closing ceremonies, I noticed kids leaving in tears, parents leaving in tears. We were all in tears, and part of that was that Challenger Baseball is only about 8 to 10 weeks of time, and for our students with disabilities, it's the only gig in town. So there wasn't other activities for them to participate in outside of school and outside of the months of September and October. So Bernie Johnson, one of our amazing volunteers and coaches, looked at me and at closing ceremonies and was like, "Christy, we gotta do more. Let's do soccer, let's do more." And I took that home and I thought about it for a day, and I ironically met Todd in the office like 2 days later and looked at him and said, "Maybe we should start a unified basketball team or something." And he's like, "Okay." And so as soon as we said that, Travis Wood walked by and walked into his office, and I said, "There's Travis. Maybe we should go talk to him." So Todd and I went into his office and said, "Hey, Travis, what do you think? I think we should start a unified basketball team at the middle school." And he says, "Awesome, that's amazing, I'm in 100%. And Todd and I had just come up with the idea a minute earlier, and we weren't really sure we were committed to that, but we looked at each other and decided, all right, we're doing this, and we're gonna do this year. So we left his office, and we decided it was time to make a plan. you know, if we had walked in and Travis had been like, yeah, I'm not really sure we can do this, or even had hesitated in any way, we may have hesitated as well. But he didn't. He was so excited about bringing Special Olympics to the school. He had been involved as a volunteer previously, and he was so incredible and supportive about this. I would like to recognize Travis Wood as another link in our chain. Thank you. Because he was incredibly helpful. And this, we wouldn't have the unified basketball team if it wasn't for all the work that Travis put in for us. So, you know, with deciding at the last minute to do this, Todd and I had some planning to do and realized we maybe had some fundraising to do. And that kind of snowballed a little bit because we had a lot of things we wanted to do with these kids. We talked about unified theater, music, arts, everything that we could imagine that we have seen. Students participate throughout the state, but we just don't have in our area. And then we decided if we're going to do all these programs, we probably need to fundraise, and that was going to be complicated. So Todd and I decided to start our own nonprofit. And we came up with our nonprofit called Down East Adaptive Youth Recreation. And we actually have a 5-member board. And we immediately started planning and fundraising for more unified activities. We really wanted to have a chance for all the kids in the community to play and do whatever they wanted and create access for families. It's expensive, there's travel, there's not just having the knowledge of knowing what activities exist in the state, but also creating new programs. And Todd was brave enough to say, yes, let's do this with me. And I'm very, very thankful that he did. And so when we estimate about how many kids' lives are going to be changed through the nonprofit, we came up with about 200. So Todd, if you will put another link in the chain, please. I did. I counted every one of them. There's 200 in that bag. Because, you know, like Bob said, we want every kid to get to play and participate whenever they want to do. And if resources are the problem, then we wanted to find a way to help with that. So, you know, what came next was that Travis, Todd, and myself really needed to get approval. And so Dan Higgins was generous enough to meet with us and, along with the board, approved our first unified intramural basketball to begin last year, same year that we came up with our idea. He could have put brakes on and said, let's take a year to plan. But he put some faith in us that we could pull this off. So Dan, would you add your link in our chain, please?
Grace is pretty good with state.
Thank you. So we needed a coach. And I knew exactly who it was going to be for the first minute. As soon as we decided, I knew who I wanted to be our coach. Lisa Jones is, she's an amazing human being. She's our physical therapist at school. She's a basketball player and a basketball star and coach, but that's not why I wanted her. Those were part of the reasons, but the kids love and trust her. She has relationships with them already, and our kids have never done anything like this, and I knew that it would take somebody who they trusted already to get them to be there, to walk onto the court, to take the risk, because this is a big risk for these students. And I knew Lisa had to be the person to do it. When I went to her, she didn't hesitate. She was so excited, and she's like, yes, how are we going to pull this off? So Lisa and Travis, Bernie Johnson, and Heather Colson were also coaches, and they created an amazingly safe and wonderful, loving atmosphere for these kids to take risks. And we had a really big game. So I'm going to have Lisa say a little something about the impact that this had. Travis was instrumental in, here, I'll have you put your link on while I say this. In helping her plan for this big game to occur at our school. We knew we didn't have any other teams to play because we're the only middle school unified team around. So we had enough players to have 2 teams at our school, and they could play each other, but it took us time to get there. But Travis and Lisa came up with the big game idea, and I have to have her tell you guys about it because it was amazing.
There was a lot of planning that went into the big game. We did a lot of advertising around school. We made signs. Kids helped make the signs. There was a lot of excitement that was raised about the big game. There's so many people involved. I hope I don't miss any. But, you know, myself as the coach, the amount of work that Travis and Kathy and Todd and Christy put into this effort was just amazing. I can't tell you enough about the student volunteers. We had probably double the amount of student volunteers, and toward the end, it was very difficult to pick and choose who was going to participate in the game because we could only have so many players, but so many kids wanted to be involved in this process. The things that happened on the court were amazing, but what happened off the court was more amazing. Instances that I can share with you. One day I was walking by the cafeteria and an ed tech had pulled me aside and said, "You need to come see this right now." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" And they said, "He's eating lunch with other kids." "What do you mean he's eating lunch with other kids?" "He's never sat with anybody before," she said. "He's eating lunch with other students. He made the choice to go sit with somebody else." And that is what really melts my heart, and that is why I wanted to be involved in that program, was instances like that. Another instance was Christy actually came to me and said, "You won't believe what one of the kids said today, that kids were high-fiving him in the hallway and calling him by name, and that he was so proud to come and tell her that he had been recognized for the person that he was and the recognition that he got and how that made him feel." So these are the links and the trickle-down effect that we see off the court that other people don't get to see, but we get to bear witness to in the school every day. But the amount of volunteers we had Denny Harmon volunteered his time for refereeing for the game, along with Jill St. Peter. Kirsten Jester and Gloria Searway donated their time to come and run the clock for these kids. We had people helping out with cheering. We had parent volunteers helping out with stuff. I can't tell you the amount of people that were involved in making all of this come together. I think one of the other big things for me was, as a coach, sitting on the sidelines and looking out into the stands and seeing probably 90% of our school staff there cheering these kids on, and those stands were full. They were full, and that was really, really cool. So I just want to thank you for inviting me and thinking of me to be part of this program, because it truly is near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
So, one other piece that came out of that, I see that the person is not here, but I want to take a moment to recognize part of the big game, or when we were planning for the big game, I was approached by Heather Tupper. Heather Tupper is a local cheering coach. Many people know her. She runs Legends Athletics. And she came to find Todd and I at practice and said, "What are you doing? I hear you're doing basketball. How can I create a unified cheering team?" And she really wanted to be part of that. Got in contact with us many times, stopped by our unified practices to speak to Todd and I about how to do this. And this year, as part of her programming and her athletics, she is starting a unified team, and she's expecting the impact to be about 30 kids. And I will put her link on because she's probably rather. So, as part of this chain, Todd and I got kind of dorky and went to a few Special Olympics conferences for fun, because we really wanted to make this a official Special Olympics sport. We wanted to get certified to be coaches. He and I are now certified unified bocce coaches, because that's one's coming down the pike next. No, we really are certified bocce coaches through Special Olympics. As part of that is because we wanted Ellsworth to be able to be a champion unified school. What it takes to have Ellsworth be a champion unified school is to have a team, to have a club, and to have some youth leadership. So by going to the conferences and learning about the organization and getting trained to be coaches and representatives, we were able to make Ellsworth Elementary Middle School an official unified champion school this year. So, as part of this, I said we need to have a club and we need to have youth leadership. So that means more volunteers, right? Because I can't do everything. Luckily for me, we have an incredible teacher at our school who really approached me last year when I sort of took over in the middle school for a few months. And she invited the special education students on a field trip. And that was life-changing for the kids. I think it was for her too. We had an amazing field trip, and we went and released baby salmon, and the kids had a great time. And when we returned from that trip, she said, I want to be part of what you're doing. I want to do more. What can I do? And I said, well, actually, we need somebody who is willing to help us have a unified club at our school, and also to help with some youth leadership for these kids. So as part of that, Rachel's Challenge and the Friends of Rachel Club, one of the big things for that is the importance of inclusion and including Special Olympics kids. So as part of that club, Melanie is going to be planning and being part of a unified club that monthly will meet. And they'll be doing activities for the K-8 students, but it'll be run by the Friends of Rachel Club of the middle school kids. And that's about 75 kids impacted. Thanks, Mel. And did I have you put 30 in there when Lisa was up? Did I have you put 30 in there when Lisa was here? Okay, good. So next up is Travis again, because we had a team, but we didn't have anyone to play. So in order to make this work, we have to have teams to play. So Travis said, all right, well, I'll invite Mike Littlefield from Special Olympics in Maine to come to our athletic director's regional meeting. So he did, and Mike Littlefield came. And at that meeting, they spoke to 9 athletic directors. After hearing Travis and Mike speak about what we did here at Ellsworth, we had 6 athletic directors out of the 9 definitely commit to starting a unified team this year to play with our students. And the other 3 are working towards it. So Travis, just by doing that one little piece, over 120 students affected. 120. So the last step, so where we're at right now, is this Friday, Matt Wibberly and I have planned a field trip. And our Matt was the unified coach at the high school, and he came to me and said, I heard about this Inclusion Revolution conference in Portland, which is when Todd and I went to, just the 2 of us last year. And I said, I know. And he said, let's take kids. And I said, great, let's do it. And so, Matt was very helpful in planning, getting approval, and making sure that all of our kids, parents, buddies, and staff members were able to come. And this Friday, we are taking 12 kids down to Portland to the Inclusion Revolution Youth Summit, where they will learn about youth leadership. So, Matt? That's 12 more kids. So I'm going to let Kathy Lewis wrap this up, but I just wanted to make a point and let you guys know that because of my friend Bob Dorr, who has taught me a lot and been a great role model, there are 617 beads in that jar that represent the hearts of the kids in our community that have been changed because of your one decision. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
I've known Bob Dorr for a lot of years. We go back a long way, and I didn't know that in the last 5 years, he had been the catalyst for this. But it doesn't surprise me because that's who he is. His wife, Stanya, was one of my best friends, and we worked together in Steuben. And together, as a team, this is the kind of thing they did all the time. There's a literacy day in another school that was started because the two of them cared about kids and reading. And Bobby's done sports forever. But tonight, you see exactly, and it's literally hundreds and hundreds in just this one area. We talk about kindness and caring, inclusion, belonging, differentiation, diversity, and there isn't one of those words that isn't applied to exactly what you heard tonight. And you see how wonderful the kids are about it. You see how many kids were involved. But take a look at the grown-ups who felt so wonderful about this kind of activity and how it grew. So we have chains that represent a huge part of a population, and we have wonderful people who are committed to having kids grow and learn. And everybody learns from having this sort of activity. All of our kids, Special Olympics, regular ed, no matter what, everybody learns and everybody cares. And that's really what Rachel's Challenge is all about. That's really about kindness starts with me. But for this particular program, that kindness started with Bobby Dorr. So Bobby, oh, and by the way, Christy didn't tell you, Stanya's favorite color was purple, so it's kind of like Bobby's too. So these go home with you tonight, my friend. With all the thanks, appreciation, and love that comes with every bit of it. Anything you want to say? You're not usually quiet.
Yes, one thing. If we could all in this room make a difference in one kid's life, we've accomplished something in our lives. So, one kid.
Yeah, and you're 600.
And Kathy and I have the same birthday. She's a little older than me.
She's a little cuter. And the kids are big now.
Imagine we get a picture with the chain and the beads. All right, snuggle up, you guys. Smile.
Shaking the PT after that. Thank you. Love it. My bad nose is running. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Todd, thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
Ready? Who's gonna follow that
I think we're ready.
Item E, communications and correspondence.
There were several letters of resignation that I have circulated amongst the board. You can take those up in my report.
Item F, public participation. You're not part of the public. Okay. Item G, administrative board reports. Start with Mr. Clifford.
Good evening. You have my report. Just want to touch on First National Arts Honor Society had our induction last Thursday night and inducted over 25 kids in those 3 categories. Parent-teacher conferences are going on tonight and Thursday night. I know the freshman team, both teams are full every 15 minutes. The whole team meets with parents, and they're full, and participation overall is up this year, so which is terrific to see. And our faculty and staff are doing some academy work, and so you know about our VPA Academy, and it was an interest that other schools are doing, and something faculty and I looked at in looking at a humanities academy and a STEAM academy. And so we're kind of exploring right now during PLC time. We're meeting those 2 academies and just kind of coming up with a plan as to what it could look like with existing classes and existing staff, and see if that's something we could do. So if there is a student that is interested in science or math or English or social studies, and they choose a path, they could graduate with a humanities diploma or a STEAM diploma, like they graduate with a VPA diploma. Our VPA program has been really popular, especially with incoming 8th graders, and it's a terrific recruiting tool for us. And I think that humanities and STEAM academies will definitely be something that parents are looking for and students are looking for, and something that we could offer that no one else in Hancock County offers. So I'll keep you updated on that work. You know, that'll continue straight through June during PLC time. But we're excited about it, and a lot of departments are excited about it. Any questions? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gavinelli?
Good evening. So Maine Association for Middle Level Educators is an organization in Maine that is very near and dear to my heart. It is the only educational organization in Maine that deals strictly with middle level education. And I had the opportunity to attend the conference on the 17th and 18th with 7 of our middle level teachers, where we spent 2 days learning strictly about how we can engage, excite, enrich the lives of our middle school students. It was a tremendous 2 days. I did a couple of presentations while at the conference. Laura Johns did as well. And we had just a great opportunity to learn and to team build, and it was phenomenal 2 days. This will be the last year that that conference takes place at Point Lookout, so we also kind of got to end an era there, which was really kind of bittersweet, certainly, especially for me and my involvement in the board of directors with that organization. But it was a great 2 days for our teachers and myself to be able to spend together and focus strictly on best practices for middle level education. During the week of October 28th, we held our Spirit Week. Our student ambassador group planned this amazing week for our school, where we had participation K-8. And every day we dressed up differently in celebration of our school pride. And it was a fantastic week just to see all the participation. But our 7th grade group won the participation contest, which was a lot of fun, so they get their prize this week. Our Friends of Rachel Club is organizing a food drive for this month. So students and staff are collecting food, non-perishable items, to create Thanksgiving Day baskets and to donate to our local food pantries and HCTC and the high school as well. So if you have any non-perishable items that you would like to donate, please feel free to hand them to a middle schooler, and they will bring them to school and put them in our box or our baskets. The EMS Theater proudly presents their production of Aladdin this month. They have performances on the 21st at 6 p.m., Friday the 22nd at 6 p.m., And Saturday, the 23rd, there's going to be a 2 p.m. show and a 6 p.m. show, and we are really excited to see that production. We just started winter sports this evening, so that's pretty exciting. And our winter concert is on December 11th. And one thing that I didn't have an opportunity to add, but on Friday, Mrs. Brown put together a small Veterans Day concert, which we kind of got to preview our school band, and they were phenomenal. They were truly amazing. And students gave speeches that they wrote to the veterans when they visited Cole's Transportation Museum last year. And one student recited a poem in regards to being a veteran. And it was really very nice. The entire school attended, K-8. And it was lovely, and the band sounds phenomenal, and we're looking forward to the winter concert. So those are all good things that are happening. A couple of notes for parents. We had volunteer training this afternoon at 4:30. We did our monthly PTF meeting, and that will be happening the second Tuesday in December as well at 3 o'clock in the library. The PTF book fair is coming up. It's going to start on December 3rd, and the parent night will be December 5th. And our annual gift-giving day that the PTF hosts will be coming up on December 18th, and we are currently accepting new or like-new items so that the kids can gift to their loved ones. Any questions? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis?
I'll make this part short. The other part was so worthy. As many of you know, we've had students at our school who've had tragedies outside of school. And any efforts at inclusion, belonging, caring, and sharing, and especially this time of year, are just absolutely amazing. I need to thank our PTF because they were right on top of that in terms of here's a family in need. And it's not our first family this year. But the kind of support and the kind of caring that's evidenced both with staff and with students for those students affected. And by the way, almost everybody's affected because they either know what happened or they've heard what happened. And some of those kids are just as afraid it could happen to them. So to create a safety net of caring and making sure that we're paying attention is just huge. And while all that's going on, kids are taking assessments and working hard and learning just as much as they can. And teachers, I always say, everybody's a teacher, everybody's a learner. But in our school, K-8, you can see what's going on. People are taking courses all the time. The district offers professional development. This Friday, there'll be a Never Stop Learning session for so many people who are willing to share their strengths as an in-house resource with other people who are in our district, and that is absolutely wonderful. In terms of the community, there are more things in my report you can take a look at, but in terms of the community, the library conversation was well received, and Erica did a fantastic job of having those kids be comfortable enough to share. What are some of the issues at our school? What are the kindness evidences that there are? And how could others help? And again, that adds to that chain all the way through. And for me, we talk a lot about the kindness chain and it reaching out. And for me, it's a ripple effect. That's how I envision it. So if she dropped all 620 some of those stones in the pond, that's the ripple effect I think it would have. But we have evidence of that. Teachers learning and striving every minute to be really good at their craft, but to be really caring with their kids. I think we are blessed in Ellsworth. We have resources, internal and external, who want to support. April Clifford, God bless her, has joined the team for setting up those community conversations and aids us both in focus and in topic about where we can go next. So we're looking at things like, and sharing with the community, some in our school and radiated out, focused a lot on parents, but other conversation at the Ellsworth Public Library, who desperately wants to partner with us in terms of sharing with people what's helpful to improving the quality of life. And April suggested that maybe we could look at balance between screen and non-screen times. There were times in the old days where we said to kids for weeks on end, we would say, you know, in another couple weeks, we're going to go no screen for a week. And if you take a look at even all of us as adults, you'd be hard put to do that. Even those of us who are the least technology inclined would be hard put for a whole week. But we're talking about in what ways can we make sure kids and their families are safe. When we talk about safe use of online, we're looking at olders who get scammed, youngers who get caught up in things, and how do we get information out to the community? If our school district is the hub of the community, and truly it is, because everybody's affected by what we do, and we try to make sure we're enabling everybody to do their best. But if we're really the hub of the community, we need to be a major resource for the community. We can help them, and they obviously help us, so. But thank you very much, and tonight's presentation just brought it all home. The important things are recognized and valued in this school district, and thank you for your part in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bowles?
Good evening. First, not in my report, I want to thank the business community for coming out to our fall advisory night at the end of October. Mrs. Alexander even was able to attend. Her husband sits on our automotive board, and Jenny came and went around and saw all the different programs meet. So it was a wonderful night. We had a lot of input that was given. We had a lot of changes that we were talking to program advisory members about, so we really appreciate those business people that came that evening and participated. Our multimedia program, like I do each month, I try to give you some updates on a couple of programs. This month, wanted to talk a little bit about media that is beginning their intense unit on video making and really looking at vocabulary of camera shots and angling, and then using their own skills in those areas and using different softwares to practice those skills they use. And they're also beginning a lot of intensive writing, looking at how to write a screenplay. Our media program really looks at hands-on skills, but we also really try to incorporate a lot of English standards as well into that program, and they do actually quite a bit of writing in our multimedia program, so this is the start of a big writing unit for them as well. Really excited about a collaboration that started this year with Ellsworth Elementary and Middle School school nurse, who has to do hearing and vision tests of students at different grade levels and heights and weights. And this year, we were really excited that we got approval for our second-year health occupation students to help participate. So in groups of 3, our CNA students went over and assisted her. I got a very nice email from her saying how she's new to our school system, so I think she was wondering the first time they came how it would go, having high school students assist, and her email said, "I just want you to know how organized, professional, polite, and efficient they were. We're so appreciative of your help, but I also want to say thank you for the support of letting us do that at the elementary, middle school, Kathy and Erica, because for us, it gave our second-year students the opportunity to actually put skills in place in a school environment, which they don't typically get to do, and so it was beneficial, very much so for our students as well. Also received exciting news last week. Our CNA programs across the state are going to be allowed to offer a new certification for students, and Michelle Cody, with her training, has been approved to offer this certification. She'll be offering the Personal Support Specialist certification, so as students go through their CNA curriculum, they're also going to receive the PSS certification, which is an additional certification. So now our students who go through our 2-year health occupations program will receive 4 certifications if they pass all of their exams. They'll receive their CNA, their PSS, their CRMA, and then, of course, this year we also added the EKG certification. So students really are going to have quite a bit added to their resume when they complete our CNA program. I just received our letter from the Department of Education giving us 100% approval for our 2 possible new programs in the fall, cybersecurity and hospitality, travel, and tourism. We're really excited about both of those. This 100% approval means that they will be factored into the state funding formula process, and it gives us approval to move forward with us being able to recruit and budget for these programs. Of course, if we don't have student enrollment and/or the budget doesn't get approved, the state understands that we are not committed to these if those 2 things don't come through, so I want to make sure people understand that. But they are 2 very good, great possibilities for the youth of our community if they both fly locally. Our Skills USA organization has been very busy. We just did our fall middle school camp last weekend and had about 60 middle school students attend on a Saturday morning and come for different sessions, and a lot of our Skills USA students volunteer at that event. Our Boggy Brook Fun Run is this Sunday. I have flyers for the principals to take to make sure they're hung in schools. If anyone is interested in the fun run, there's a family 1 mile activity, or there is the traditional 5K walk run. That's Sunday morning right on Boggy Brook Road. So you can just call the school or look up the Boggy Brook Run on Facebook. We have an event, and the link to the registration is right there. I also want to announce that staff and students decided that for the first time we're going to have a float in the holiday parade. So we're quite excited about that. The staff is plotting and scheming with students now about how they're going to decorate their float. So I'm excited that they've decided for the month of December. They're usually very focused on fundraising, and I was thrilled that they decided that for the month of December they wanted to participate in a community activity and give back. So they'll be participating in the holiday parade the first weekend of December. Finally, I put some upcoming dates just to notice about our restaurant, Brookside. We are open this week, and then we are closed until December because every year our culinary arts students help the VFW with their annual Thanksgiving meal preparation. We do all of their cooking for that. So this Wednesday is your last chance to eat at Brookside Restaurant, and then we will be closed until December. And of course, mark your calendars, December 18th is the annual holiday buffet and gingerbread house competition. So we're excited for that. It's coming up faster than we think. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Como-Reyes? Good evening. As Kathy said, we're having our first Friday afternoon Never Stop Learning session this week. We have, I think we're up to 10 different sessions being offered from within the school district for the school district. So all teachers and ed techs will be able to select a workshop to attend in one of the 3 buildings of the district. So we have everything offered from April will be offering to go over jump rope, and Ginger is going to be teaching about Google Classroom. We have trainings from our Title I staff on Founders Pinnell running records. Our first grade teacher, Alexis Chapman, is reviewing digital portfolios with Seesaw. We have a variety. Debbie Richards will be teaching a vocabulary workshop. Tristan Bates will be teaching about the Remind app. It's that we use with parents and students. Our ed tech in the library, Pam Harriman, is going to talk about PD in Focus, which is how teachers can get contact hours. And we'll be working with Atlas. We have a variety of opportunities for teachers and ed techs to be able to get contact hours. We've supported this program in different ways, but this year we'll be building it into the school day 3 times this year so that teachers can meet each other and find out about all the talent that we have right here in Ellsworth to share. So I'm excited about that. And I do want to thank April Clifford, who's helped me learn how to use the new app, a sign-up app, to do this because she's been very patient with me. Thank you. Peer coaching at Ellsworth High School. The student-centered peer coaching cycle has begun at the Ellsworth High School. 9 teachers and Debbie Richards, the Ellsworth School Department instructional coach, are working together on the peer coaching model that was piloted last year. This year, they're working with new teachers and veteran teachers in the classroom and sharing observations with each other. These sessions are coupled with professional development with a cohort of teachers throughout the state, coordinated by the Maine Curriculum Leaders Association. On September 10th and 11th, the student coaching team attended a conference on student-centered coaching in Waterville that looked at the most effective coaching strategies based on in-depth research by Diane Sweeney. Our November PD days are coming up. On November 25th and 26th, during our professional development days, we will be working with the National Association of Mental Illness, or NAMI Maine. One of their trainers will be meeting with each faculty group in the Ellsworth School Department for a suicide prevention awareness training as part of their greater initiative called Elements of a Suicide Safer District. We will also welcome Joe Schmidt from the Maine Department of Education. He is a phenomenally talented social studies specialist at the DOE who worked with our teachers this summer on discussing the newly designed social studies standards. He's worked in other states to develop full social studies curriculums, particularly in Wisconsin. So he's coming and has offered to meet with all of our grade level groups of social studies teachers to help craft a storyline or a set of themes that are emphasized in the standards and will best support our students' learning around government, economics, community, geography, Wabanaki culture, and this year, a new addition to the standards are personal finance. Other work sessions at the high school will revolve around the investigation of developing new academies, as Mr. Clifford talked about, dropout prevention programs, and inter-district collaborative meetings. At the elementary and middle schools, teachers will continue their work on rubrics and assessments, as well as working with the new phonics program. Also, teachers who attended workshops on changes to the science and social studies standards over the last month will have the opportunity to explore the resources shared with them by the state. On October 29th, our Title I faculty and EEMS administration hosted a wonderfully attended spaghetti dinner and information night. Approximately 15 EEMS families joined us for dinner and dessert, as well as wonderful entertainment from our Theater Today facilitator and arts outreach coordinator, Nicole Cardano. She read a story and conducted theater games with the kids, while the adults joined us for information about the Title I-A program. Many thanks to Lisa Russell for making the delicious dinner and to 4 Ellsworth High School students for their energetic help. We are lucky to have such caring teachers and administrators who really do go above and beyond for our EEMS families. Since our reorganization in 2014, our school department has conducted reviews of curricular programs each year, including math, science, and reading, and this year, social studies. So this year, as I talked about, we're working on integrating our new social studies standards and reviewing those instructional practices, as well as examining our gifted and talented program. For this program, we want to work to ensure transparent communication around the protocols in identification, assessment, and instruction. Finally, our new teacher cohort is going really beautifully. Debbie Richards has been organizing and meeting with our new teachers. This is the first year we've done this since Ellsworth has become its own school district again, and it's been something we've been working towards. I attended the meeting today and will continue to do so now that I'm back at work after a departure for a while, and I had a really wonderful meeting. One of our teachers used a chapter of a book, Teach Like a Champion, to exemplify some excellent resources and strategies for the classroom with a lesson that she does. And this was Bev Brown, who did a drumming lesson talking about direct ways of giving students immediate feedback and positive feedback. And she did a beautiful job showing us how she's working with drumming in the classroom and taught us all a little bit about composing. We also talked about Atlas, and the teachers are extremely enthusiastic, had wonderful ideas, really beautiful conversations. Every month, they are working on this book study, bringing ideas from the book to share with each other about best teaching practices. And also we're having visitors come in and talk about different aspects of the school district. April Clifford joined us last month and was able to talk to teachers about technology. We have our social worker, Stacey Wood, coming next month and talking about trauma-sensitive classrooms. So our new teachers are getting some time to talk in a small group and discuss their challenges and successes as they join our Ellsworth School Department. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Thomas. I'd like to start my report by congratulating our newest board member, Jen Alexander. Welcome to the board, Jen.
Thank you.
And also congratulating Paul Markosian on his reelection.
Oh, yes, thank
You
you.
were reelected.
I
weren't
was, yes. According to the Ellsworth American, yeah.
It's accurate. Just let the board know that formally FY21, believe it or not, FY21 budget preparations have begun. We're working very hard in the office with the enrollment projections and staffing projections, which is particularly important with the amount of growth that we've been seeing in our community over the past several years and what we're expecting in the coming years. At our first leadership meeting following the Thanksgiving holiday, our administrators that you've just heard from are going to spend some time talking about staffing needs and priority items across the system, and we'll finalize the timeline for submission of the initial budget drafts. And as we always do at this meeting, I think, I let them know it's probably going to be close to the end of this calendar year. You can see they're all very excited about that. I'd like to do a brief report on the HCTC Facility Feasibility Study Steering Committee. Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Markosian, you sit on that committee, but that committee most recently met on November 5th, at which time the committee developed a scoring rubric to be used in evaluating submissions from potential providers. And the committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow evening at 6:15. And on that agenda would be a review of the submissions from the request for qualifications, selection of submitting firms for interviews, and a final review of the interview process. And I don't know if either of you would like to share anything on that? Just want to give you a chance. We did hire a couple of new staff since our last meeting. Michael Holson has joined the district on the instructional technology staff, and Nola Buchanan has joined as an Ed Tech 3 at Ellsworth High School. We had some resignations since our last meeting. 2 custodians at the high school, Gary Brooks and Heather Layton, have resigned. And as you heard earlier, unified basketball coaching, Matt Wibberly and Kayla Reardon have resigned from those positions, and they've done a nice job there. So we still have a number of vacancies we're looking to fill for anyone out there who's interested. We still are looking for a grade 5 teacher-ready EMS, a grade 5 and 6 special ed teacher-ready EMS, speech and language pathologist, and 4 custodians. And you can't close out a November meeting without talking about the fact that winter has finally arrived. So take the opportunity just to remind parents about our notification system for school closures and delayed openings. As we have done in past years, we will continue to use the Infinite Campus system to communicate closures or delayed openings. And those communications come either by phone, email, and/or text. We will also post the same information on the following media outlets: WLBZ and WABI television, WNSX Star 97.7 FM radio, WZON radio, and the Town Square media stations. Would like to make one reminder to students and parents to please remember the protocols that we implemented last year in the event of a delayed opening to schools that occurs on a Friday. If we have a delayed opening on a Friday, the operating procedure will be that the school day will be a regular length school day and not an early release PLC day. So, and hopefully, we'll go along with our current trend so far of not using any storm days for the balance of the year. Any takers on that?
I'm rooting for you, Dan.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Item H, committee reports. Okay, hearing none. Item I, old business, there's none. Item J, new business. Discussion and consideration of overnight out-of-state travel.
And I believe you received the information from the annual Boston Flamenco Festival, and Mr. Clifford is here to answer any questions that you may have. I know he's been well briefed on this 13th annual outing to Boston.
That it was going to demonstrate the dance.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, this is the
I think
13th
if
year
the board
that,
votes that by a majority, Mr. Clifford would do that. Sorry, Mr. Clifford.
so, yeah, this is the 13th year Mrs. Corson is bringing a group down to Boston, and they would leave on Friday, February 15th, early in the morning, and come back on Sunday. And as you can see by the itinerary, every minute is used up, and just feedback from kids that come back, they have a great time, and they speak as much Spanish as they can, especially during the session of the dance and when they go out to eat. So, any questions specifically?
I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve for the overnight out-of-state trip to Boston Flamenco Festival as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Acknowledge and acceptance of actions by the Facility and Transportation Committee to buy a van.
Would the committee like to address this?
Sure. Abby Miller and I met with Dan last week, was it? No, today.
Today.
It was today, yeah.
This morning.
All these days blend together. To approve the purchase of a van to replace one that was damaged recently in a little accident in which no one was injured, thankfully. That was a van that we bought used. Jack Turcott.
Bought that, it was a year-old model that was still new,
Uh-huh,
and Mr. Turcott got a wonderful deal on it.
right. And we got a good settlement from our insurance on that one, didn't we?
Yes, that van originally, I believe, booked for over $30,000. We received insurance proceeds of $26,300. So it gave Mr. Saunders a little bit of money to go get bids on some various transportation opportunities for our special needs students.
Mhm. So, good job, Mr. Saunders, in finding that van, and Abby and I approved the purchase of it today. We're asking the board to approve our recommendation.
Make a motion to acknowledge and accept the actions by the Facilities and Transportation Committee to buy a van.
We need a second.
Can we, I don't think we can do that.
I think we can.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor? Discussion and consideration of a propane bus application.
So, at the same meeting that we had an opportunity to discuss, there's a settlement from Volkswagen. It's provided money for, some of which comes to us, and it will enable us to purchase a new bus if we qualify under certain circumstances, which apparently we do. So, this application will be to purchase a bus that costs probably over $80,000.
Actually, $105,000.
$105,000, yeah. But the state, the amount that we're getting out of this program would offset a majority of that cost.
It would offset the $84,000.
Okay. Offset $84,000, so we'll be paying a little over $20,000 for a bus, which is a good deal. The application has to be submitted by the end of this week, and pending the approval of the board tonight, we'll be doing that. We're looking to add this purchase to our next year's fiscal budget, not this one. But we need to get the application in now so that we can do that then. So, if someone would like to make a motion.
Make a motion to approve submission of the application for a propane bus as presented.
I second that motion.
Discussion?
Transportation Supervisor Saunders is here tonight if anyone has any questions, but this is the same program by which we were able to purchase a propane bus that is on the roads now. The reviews from our drivers have been very positive. I certainly support what Mr. Saunders is asking for us to resubmit an application, and appreciate the Facility Transportation Committee's support of this as well.
Yeah, and this propane is a cleaner fuel to burn, so it produces less pollution. It's also, occasionally people question whether it's, propane is safe. We think of propane as a gas that is volatile and can explode, but apparently, when you look into it, it's actually a very safe fuel to use, and Mr. Saunders again, provided, some verification of that it's, the safety record of propane buses is very good, very good.
Further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Consideration and approval of lease purchase bids for a bus.
If I may say, Mrs. Thomas, the reason the Facilities Transportation Committee met today was because those bid documents were due at noontime today.
Oh, okay.
So they responded very quickly.
So, the lease purchase, we received 4 bids for a new school bus, which we need to purchase to replace one that needs to be taken out of service. And the lease, so the purchase, we got, this is on the financing of it, is that correct?
Yes.
And we've got 4 bids that were, one of them was pretty good interest rate, but one of them was extraordinarily good. So that's the one that the committee recommended going with, which is from Santander. And with an annual interest rate of 2.5%. Hard to imagine getting any better than that. And so again, the committee has recommended that we accept that recommendation and that the board approve it.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve a lease purchase bid for a bus as presented.
I'll second. Thank you. Discussion?
I just want to say that this is for the lease purchase of a bus that was approved by the board at a previous
Right.
meeting for this year.
Hearing none? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Report on the Maine School Management Conference. I believe that's you, Mr. Marcosian.
Okay, well, I was the sole board member who was able to attend the conference this year. So Maine is unique among all the states in that every state has a superintendent's association and a school board association. In Maine, they both operate under a single umbrella. They are separate organizations, but they also come together. The umbrella organization is called Maine School Management Association. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that in Maine, these two organizations that can sometimes be at odds with each other or can be perceived as having disparate interests because school boards oversee superintendents, they hire them. And, it's the only employee in a school department that is under the direct supervision of the school board. But I think in Maine, and certainly in our community here, both organizations look for what is in the best interest of the students and how we can produce the best educational outcome for our students. And so it makes sense for us to function as these two organizations to function together. And one of the best venues for that is the annual fall conference, which takes place over 2 days near the end of October. The conference starts off with a keynote speaker, and then we go into what are called clinics. So there's sessions that last about an hour and 5 or hour 10 minutes long, and there's usually 6 or 7 clinics that you can choose from among to attend. Another word for clinics is seminars. That's probably what may better describe them to the general public. So it's like taking classes, and you have a choice of topics, and in the book you can read a description of what the clinics are and decide which one would be the best one to attend. It was a hard choice to make in some of the sessions because there were sometimes 3 or 4 clinics I really wanted to go to, but you can only go to one. I felt a little bit like I was in law school because a lot of the clinics are done by members of Drummond Woodsum, which is the law firm that handles, is the law firm for Maine School Management Association and handles, they specialize in education topics. So the clinics that I took included, there were two clinics that were parts 1 and 2, advanced collective bargaining, parts 1 and 2. The first one, part 1, mostly addressed legislative changes from the last legislative session that affect issues around school contracts, collective bargaining. And the second one was preparing for the increase in a base salary for teachers in the next 3 years. As you may know, the legislature passed a bill that would mandate starting teacher pay to go up, to get ratcheted up over the course of 3 years to a $40,000 base. So school districts around the state that are preparing, in the process of bargaining with Teachers Association for the next 3-year contract, or are looking to do that in the next year or two, are looking at this bill and how they can best prepare for it. So that was a very useful seminar. Another clinic I went to was conducted by Karen Kusiak, who's the legislative liaison for the Department of Education. And she talked about some of the bills that are coming up in this session of the legislature. As you may know, the second of the 2 years in the legislature it's a little bit shorter session. It's supposed to be mostly carryover bills, and there's limits on which new bills can be added. But the governor is allowed to submit new bills, and we're looking, according to her, that there may be a bill from the governor to eliminate the process to appeal to the Department of Education Commissioner to overrule superintendent agreements. A superintendent agreement is when a family asks that a student in one district be able to attend school in a different district outside of where that student lives. And if both superintendents agree to that, it can be done. But if even one doesn't agree, then it can be appealed to the Department of Education. And under the previous administration, a lot of these appeals were granted. The vast majority were. So under the current governor, we're seeing fewer of them granted, but there's still a lot of appeals, and it's creating a little bit of a bottleneck with the Department of Education. And it's so this, I think, if this bill does get submitted, and we don't know yet if it'll get passed, but the rationale for it is to return this decision to local control, to the superintendents who are closest to the parties involved, and have a better sense of what's in the best interest of the student. But that caused kind of a stir around the room when she mentioned that, because it's something that we've all gotten. It's been a different. It'll be a big change to how things are done. Another bill that the governor's planning to submit is it would grant the right to waive certain certification requirements. The Department of Ed could waive certain certification requirements. The reason for this is because, as we all know, there's a teacher shortage like everywhere, not just here in our district, but throughout the state, throughout the country. And if a teacher from one state moves here and doesn't have certain certification that our state requires that theirs didn't, it creates a barrier, a hurdle. And we want to just, you have situations where you have experienced teachers who are not able to secure jobs, and so this would eliminate that. And again, this would be in the best interest of, it's for the students. It's so we can get teachers in place to serve the students where we need them. So there's a lot that I could talk about, but I don't want to go too long here. Other clinics I took was what it means to be a school board member. I feel like this is the beginning, I'm now in my third term as a school board member, so I've taken a lot of classes and read a lot about this, but I feel it's always good to review and see what else you can learn about that, what the rights, the responsibilities of a school board member, what you can and can't do. And then finally, I took one on a primer on bonding and funding sources for school construction and renovation projects. When we're looking at this HCTC project, I thought this might be a good thing to have. This is the handout from that. It's a lot of pages. Of course, there's a lot more to know than what's in here. But that was a helpful introduction to this process, and hopefully it can help me as we move forward with that. We also had a regional meeting of the Hancock County School Board members, and we talked about ways that we can collaborate and on projects, and also maybe how we can work together with sort of combine our resources in certain areas, like with special ed or transportation, just looking for ways that we can, here in Hancock County, can enhance what we're doing and also be more fiscally responsible. And then we had some great speakers too. The keynote speaker Thursday morning was Dr. Donna M. Beagle, who grew up in a family that was in extreme poverty, and she has, her topic was how to help students overcome the obstacles that poverty presents them with. And she went on to earn a PhD, and the first in her family to graduate from college. But she talked about, and she's written a book, and she talked about how poverty is one of probably the single most difficult thing for students that keeps them, that's blocking them from succeeding in education. So that was a really moving talk. And then the EndNote speaker was Peter Vigue, who's the chairman of Chambro Companies, and he also came from, not poverty, but from a family that was not very well off at all, and single mom, and he talked about how a single teacher had an enormous impact on the course that his life took, and then how he developed a leadership style that places a high value on employees' welfare and safety. And it was really, that was another very moving talk. It was actually, he shared the stage with an author named George Manning, who is an Ellsworth resident, and wrote a book on leadership called The Art of Leadership. It's now in its 6th edition, and George is working on the 7th edition. He spends a lot of time, he comes to Flexit Cafe and works at it, revising this book, so I get to talk to him about it. It's used a lot in the U.S. military uses this book, and a lot of other organizations and companies use it. And George kind of interviewed Peter up on stage, and it was a really good back and forth, give and take. So it was a good way to end the conference. So it was a great experience, and I was grateful to be able to go, and I look forward to sharing more of what I learned with the board, and looking forward to hopefully going again next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Number 7, acknowledge an acceptance of a donation to Hancock County Tech Center.
Well, finally, an item where we can add to all the positive things that have been discussed tonight. A couple of weeks ago, I got a call from Bill at No Frills Oil, our propane and heating oil provider, wanting to know if we would be interested in accepting a donation of a diesel engine for the programs at HCTC. And I suggested that he speak with Mrs. Bowles and Mr. Havel and Mr. Trowbridge, and he said, I've already done that, and they directed me to you. So I would like the board to acknowledge, I don't know if we've got it yet, Mrs. Bowles?
I don't believe so.
We don't.
I think we're working on it.
Told him that I'm certain that we would accept it, but would like to have the board acknowledge acceptance of the diesel engine donation to HCTC from Bill at No Frills Oil.
Make a motion to acknowledge acceptance of a diesel engine donation to HCTC as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
5-0.
And we'll make sure we send a communication to Bill thanking him for that.
Thank you.
May have already been done.
School board reorganization, election of the Ellsworth School Department Board Chair for 2019-20.
So is this the point where I get to run the meeting for one item?
Yes.
Excellent. I want to do that. So would open the floor up to nominations for the position of School Board Chair for the 2019-20 year.
I'd like to recommend that we elect Mrs. Thomas to another term as chairman of the board.
Any other nominations?
Are you sure you don't want it, Paul?
I'm positive.
Just asking.
So seeing as they're hearing none, would you make that in the form of a motion, Paul?
Yeah, I move that we elect Brenda Thomas as board chair for the 2019-20 year.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
Abstained.
Abstain. Okay. 4, 0, 1. I'll gladly turn the reins back over to you, Mrs. Thomas.
Okay, election of the Ellsworth School Department Vice Chair for 2019-20.
Paul?
Yes.
You vice chair? Okay.
Is that in the form of a motion, Abby?
I recommend,
Okay.
I make a motion to elect Paul Marcosian to our board vice chair for 2019-2020.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. 5-0. 4-0? Oh,
That's
oh,
it.
oh.
He's waiting to
oh,
vote.
Abstain. It's late. Okay. Calendar and announcements. We have a school board workshop on Tuesday, November 26th, 2019, at the Ellsworth School Department Conference Room at 6 PM.
Now, that
I
is
doubt it.
Thanksgiving week. Do we want to keep that date?
I won't be here.
I won't be here either. I'll be on the road.
I'm going to say that's probably, we're not going to keep
We're
that
not gonna
date.
keep
Should
that
we-
date.
Should we look to move to the next week? I know the board's practice has been not to just cancel, but to
Right.
Reschedule.
reschedule.
So the next week would be the 2nd of December?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yes.
we were looking at it earlier.
Is that a date that would work for people?
Let's see.
Which day?
It's a Tuesday.
Well,
Tuesday
Tuesday would
the
be the 3rd.
3rd,
So you're gonna do it
okay.
a Monday?
No, 3rd.
Oh, Thursday.
Tuesday the 3rd.
Thursday the 3rd.
I
Tuesday the 3rd.
think that the school PTF has the book fair open late on that night, which,
Which night, the 2nd or the 3rd?
on Thursday.
Okay. well, the-
This
if-
is
if-
Tuesday.
we're-
Tuesday the
Tuesday.
3rd.
Okay.
Tuesday would be the 3rd, right?
Okay, let's do Tuesday.
So does Tuesday
Well,
the
let's-
3rd work for people?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And there's the next Ellsworth School Board meeting is Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, City Hall Council Chambers at 6:30.
So at the workshop, Mrs. Thomas, you'll do
Yep.
committee assignments?
Yes.
There'll be new board member orientation
Yes?
and whatever else we need to address.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Okay, we'll talk later.
yes.
Okay. Adjournment.
Having no further business?
Keep going.
Make a motion, we adjourn the board meeting.
Second that.
All those in favor? Okay.
8 o'clock?
Yeah.